This episode is being brought to you by Diesel Fuel Prints. Diesel Fuel has been in the sticker business since 1991, and he's been printing all my stickers since the early 2000s. DieselFuelPrints.com always uses the highest quality weatherproof material, full color printing. 125 black and white stickers starts at just $25, and easy online ordering at DieselFuelPrints.com will get you a quote on a sticker of any shape and size you can think of. Shipping's always free, and listeners of this show will get a 10% discount if they use the promo code AWP2021. So go check out Diesel Fuel for your sticker needs. Today's episode is sponsored by BadMoonStudios.com, the fine art prints of Flynn Prejean. Flynn offers prints of your favorite bands such as Misfits, Danzig, Reverend Horton Heat, and Motorhead. Movie posters including Universal horror classics like The Mummy and Dracula. Fine art prints of your favorite music icons like Willie Nelson, Jimi Hendrix, Lennon, and Zappa. Bad Moon Studios also offers printing services, so make sure to check that out if you're an artist in need of printing. BadMoonStudios.com is offering a 15% discount to listeners of my show when they check out with the promo code whatever. Check out BadMoonStudios.com for the best in rock art for your walls. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anyway Whatever podcast. I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is Tiki Tony from Tikiland Trading Company and TikiTony.com. Tony's a tiki artist, obviously, and he does these amazing tiki mugs, tiki-related items such as like swizzle sticks and in art for your house and shirts and all kinds of really cool stuff. His work is amazing. He's a super nice guy. We sat down and chatted here for an hour or so. It couldn't be nicer. I'm trying to keep my intros shorter now that we have paid advertising at the beginning of the show. So all the links to the stuff for the show can be found down below: merch, shirts, all that stuff. Like, share, comment, wherever it is you get your podcast content, and get you right to the episode with Tiki Tony on the other side of this. Hey everybody, welcome back. Today's guest is Tiki Tony from Tikiland Trading Company and TikiTony.com. What's up, Tony? How are you, man?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me.
I'm happy to have you, man. I'm a huge fan of your work. Me and my wife are both huge fans of your work, and
thank you.
I was happy that you decided to come on, man. It's good to have you.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I'm always happy to share and talk about my fun work.
Yeah, like people, there's two types of people who see us professional artists as they either like super respect our hustle, or they're like, must be nice to have a fun job.
Dude, you are so right. It is funny. I remember when talking about doing work and stuff, this was even before I was full-time artist, and people would say, must be nice. And I'm like, it's still work. It just happens to be super fun for me.
Right. And there's that famous quote that's like, pick a job that you love and you never work a day in your life. And that's not true. Yeah. You're going to work like 5 times as much and have an obsession that's going to keep you up all night thinking of ideas.
Yeah, super true. And like, I think a lot of people don't realize too, it's like, like you said, it's nights and weekends. It's like anytime. And sometimes the flexibility, but yeah.
I mean, you don't have a paycheck if you don't go out and get one. You know what I mean? Like people, that is a thing. People, they're like kind of low level feeling of terror. They're like, I got to keep paying my bills, Yeah,
that was super scary at first. And it's funny. Like I initially went into teaching for that reason. I was an art school teacher.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, it's very stable. It's very good. And then within 3 years, I got pink slip and let go just because of budget cuts. And I was like, that was my stable career. What now? That was scary.
Yeah. And you're in Ventura County. So at least there's always the good weather to help offset the existential dread of being a full-time artist. I kid. It is, I couldn't imagine doing anything but what I do.
Yeah, that's what I like. People will often say, like, is it difficult to be a full-time artist or this or that? And I'm like, it was more difficult to not be. It just like burned at my soul when I was, teaching it. It was fulfilling. And then after that, I had to clean pools for 5 years. So I'm like, at first cleaning pools was cool. It was like, I was in nice backyards and everything. And then I was like, it tugged at my heart every day, knowing that I wasn't able to kind of do really what I loved. And that's when I really, probably like the second year into cleaning pools, I just really hustled and did everything I could, nights and weekends, to kind of like figure out a way to make ends meet. And then it finally clicked. A few like business meets creative things clicked for me. And then, yeah, from there it was nice, really. Yeah.
So Tikiland Trading Company, that is your company? Do you sell only your stuff, or do you sell stuff from other artists?
Yes, other artists. So it was my buddy Joel and I. We met about two and a half years ago, a little bit after going full time, and we were like became good friends. And he started helping me with a few things here and there, and then we're like, we should team up. So then we did. So we did a few mugs together, and then we've teamed up with another artist, and then we have a whole bunch of other artists that we will have mugs with in the future, but we're gonna wait till those are all like ready, and then but a lot of fun, exciting things in the works. That it's funny. I'm sure, like, you do all this work and like it can't be public for a while for certain reasons. So like there's all this exciting stuff happening, but I'm like, I can't tell you. So
my main core contract is with a toy company, and the stuff that I do is awesome. It's licensed. It's got a specific license, and I'm not, like, the license holder doesn't want anyone to know who the people behind the curtain are. And so like I literally, like, the majority of my income is on a project that is it is the most insanely cool. I can tell you, but I have to tell you off camera. But it's awesome. Like, I can't, like, it's like, it would give me bragging rights for the rest of my life if I could tell everybody what I was doing. But it's totally cool. It's fine.
Every kid's dream too, like work for a toy company, designing. I mean, that's growing up. I wanted to make toys or cartoons. I'm like,
yeah, one of the things that I got to do, I collect die-cast cars. That's my collection. I used to collect all kinds of stuff, and then I just kind of narrowed it down to die-cast cars. And then
you're talking like
Hot Wheels okay. Cars. Yeah. I try to stick in that size. I don't have enough room for the 1/18 scale ones, but that's what my dad collected for years, were the 1/18. And so at some point when he passes away, I'm going to get half a storage unit full of 25-year-old 1/18 die-cast cars. But anyway,
cool. Wait, are those the bigger sized ones?
Yeah, the 1/18 are the ones that are, much bigger. I have a couple of those, but
my dad had a 56 Chevy Bel Air wagon, and he had one that was about that size, but it was like the dealers gave it to you in 1956 when you bought the car.
Oh, wow.
Super cool. But I remember, like, my mom still has it. It was like a little bit melted. It was like a kid left it in the sun and it warped a little. But wow. I love old cars and toy cars and everything.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it just kind of all goes together with, the California kind of lowbrow surfing, tiki cult, like all that stuff is like 1 degree away from each other. But yeah, I got to, do you remember the micro machines, the little tiny cars?
Dude, my mom just gave me, I didn't realize my dad had kept them. I still have mine from like when I was a kid. She just gave them to me in a little tin. It was like the best little time machine going through them. I'm like, and I haven't seen them in. Well, I'm 40, so I don't know what 30 years or something.
Yeah,
But
it's
sorry.
been a while.
Oh yes, I know.
Well, they brought the brand back this year.
Oh, cool!
So
I didn't know that.
And I got to design like 100.
Shut up!
Of the cars, yeah.
Oh my God.
It was like, and like I swear, like right as the pandemic hit, they were trying to bring me on full time at the company that was making them. Like they were trying really hard to bring me on full time, and I'm like, I don't want to commute. It's gonna be like 3 hours of my day commuting in and out. And they're like, well, would you work from home like 4 days a week and come in 1 day a week? And I was like, well, that I might do. And then the pandemic hit, and then I don't know what, I haven't even heard from them. I don't even know what they're doing at this point. But
so they didn't launch them?
They did. I actually found a bunch in the stores at like Target and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, they brought back even like the Super Van City and like all that stuff, like all the cool accessories and stuff. The production values were a little better than the 80s ones, but
okay,
just
cool.
because the technology's better, like pad printing is better, and manufacturing is better. They're really nicely made little toys. Yeah,
I'll have to check them out, because even I was looking at the ones I have, the old ones, and I'm like, I'm amazed the detail that's in them. God, yeah,
how small they are.
Man, it makes me want to go check them out again. Because I looked at them for a little bit, and I've got kids, so I didn't have time to even really look at them. So they're sitting right near my desk, so I gotta go check them out.
Yeah, yeah. So as a toy car collector, that was a career highlight for sure.
That's so cool. Are they a part of a bigger company, or is it just Micro Machines?
There is a small toy company who I can't remember the name of, who started the project, and while we were on it, got bought by a bigger toy company called Jazzworks. And then I think during the course of the last year, at some point, they may have gotten even, because they have really good licenses at Jazzworks. Aside from the Micro Machines stuff, they have other stuff too. And so I think it's one of those things where the big fish, they just kept getting eaten by bigger fish as they went along, Yeah, no, I need to, it's like I've been so busy with everything. This last year's been so weird that I haven't been paying as much attention to what is going on with that as I probably should have. But
super cool. But you did get to design them, you said, right?
Yeah, okay. They're like out on the shelves.
The ones you designed are out.
Oh yeah.
Oh, how cool. Wow, so that's fast then. Did you designed it, and then within a year they were out?
Well, yeah. Well, I started working on them probably in like December of 19, actually maybe November of 2019. And so then I was working on them right up until like, I pretty much finished the work like when the pandemic lockdown happened, like that within weeks,
Wow. Did you ever have to go into the office?
I had to go in once, because the guy that had put me on the project left the company. Dude, he was driving from San Diego to LAX every single day for work. I was like,
maybe he was the one with the jetpack. He finally got sick of it. Did you hear about that?
Guy, yeah, he just like flew over the bay. He's like, forget it. So he left, and so the new guy was like, oh, we want to bring you in, and that was like the beginning of that. We want you to work here. It was like, wow. It was like, I don't know if it Culver City, like North San Fernando Valley to Culver City would have been an hour and a half each direction every day. And I was like, man, I've gotten so used to like walking 10 feet from my back door to my art studio every day. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, same here. Yep. Yeah. It would be very tough to leave and have to work somewhere now that, I work in my backyard or my office in the garage.
Yeah, I don't think I could work for somebody again. I don't know how I don't know if I could deal with having coworkers.
Yeah, I hear you. Earlier when we were talking about the car thing, the rat thing, I just remembered my dad, we used to go to car shows as a kid, and he got one of the airbrushed shirts from Ed Roth.
Oh, wow.
And I vividly remember him coming in, and it's, a monster driving one. He probably, because I think you could customize them for whatever car you had.
Sure.
So this would have been like 84. So but I remember like crying because the monster was like so like bright and vivid and scary. And then it's funny that like later on when I was a teenager and stuff, I was like, oh, Ratfink is so cool. Like, and then I started remembering those things and Ratfink and Ed Roth and that sort of thing. So that's a fun memory.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of my first memories as a human being, my dad was like a hot rod guy. And so he used to take me to the car shows in Northern California. Like, I mean, that was what we would do all the time. And, he'd raced in SCCA races and stuff. And he was just a total car nerd. And one of my first memories as a human being is walking into the Cow Palace in San Francisco when there's like a giant hot rod with a huge monster coming out of the top, like big fiberglass. Like, and I remember I must have been like 4 or 5 and just being like, just thought it was the coolest thing of all time. Cause I was obsessed with monsters when I was a little kid.
Wait, was it a toy or what are you talking about?
No, it was like full scale, like
a sculpture on a car.
Yeah. Like it was like a funny car with like a giant sculpted like fiberglass Ratfink like popping out of the top of it. It was insane. Of course, again, I was like 4 or 5, so maybe that's just how my mind is remembering it. I
was gonna say, like, have you seen photos? Because I mean, yeah, if it was Ed Roth, there's other photos of his stuff, but that would be awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. For all I know, it could have been like a model kit on a table somewhere, and my mind just blew it up like that.
I remember when I was about 11 or so, my dad got me the Ed Roth model kits, and it was like
I got a bunch of them back behind me.
Yeah, and I wished like I wasn't skilled enough back then. I just remember how crappy it looked when it was done. I was like, now I wish I could paint one. I guess I could get one now.
Yeah, they have reproduction ones. They're like always putting out repros of like all that stuff, and every decade or so they put out a new version of whatever it is. I have some from like the 90s, I think, that those were the model kits that you could, with most model kits, you buy a car model and you didn't have to paint it. If you didn't want to, you could just put it together and look cool. But those Roth models were made to be painted. Like they came white, and that was all the parts were white, and they meant for you to paint them. So yeah, I totally get that. And if you're doing it without an airbrush, it's probably going to be less than how you want it to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was bad. I remember painting with the bad brushes they give you. And then when I think about 3 years later, I got an airbrush. So I think I was about 12 or 13, and I just was not skilled enough at all. Like I already kind of have a shaky hand when I draw, I have to like get the death grip. So like it was bad, but now I would love to paint one, do like a dry brush thing on it. That would be cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I wish I had, I suppose if at some point I ever like retire or whatever, I'll probably just sit around and build model car kits. Yeah, cool. I mean, the airbrush is it's one of those, it's a very unique tool in the art world. It's one of the only art tools where you don't touch the surface of the piece that you're making. And so it requires a whole different mindset. About 10 years ago, I started custom airbrushing ice hockey goalie masks.
Oh, cool.
I've been a goalie since I was a little kid. And so, cool. Just ended up putting my art skills together with that. And dude, like within 6 months, it was a full-time business. And,
wow.
And so I had to learn how to airbrush pretty good, pretty fast. So I went to like the classes, I went to those classes, and they teach you the proper techniques for triggering an airbrush. And then literally the only way to get good at it, I've seen people who are naturals, and that's never fun to see as somebody who struggles to pick things up. But you just have to sit. I sat one day for like 10 hours in front of a board and just practice triggering the airbrush properly until it became muscle memory, and then that was it. I've been on my own ever since.
Cool. That's neat when practice meets, your muscle memory. I love that.
Almost everybody gives up on an airbrush before they get anywhere near there.
Yep, I believe it. I remember when that happened, using my Dremel to carve tikis and things. And I remember it went from awkward to how do I hold this, to it literally felt like an extension of my hand. And that's a magical thing. And it literally was me just being so obsessed and carving driftwood over and over because I wanted what was in my mind and wasn't getting it.
So your work is all, you actually carve all of your tiki stuff with a Dremel?
Yeah, mostly, yeah. And I mean, I have different tools.
Sure.
Mostly, depends how big the thing is, but I'll rough it out either with an electric chainsaw, and then I'll just show you because I got them right here. Angle grinder.
Oh, sure.
So this is a worn down one, but a flap disc sander. And then I have a scarier one, which I don't recommend this to anybody, but it's a chainsaw wheel on a grinder.
Wow.
And this is scary. I wouldn't recommend anyone ever use one of those.
Yeah, it doesn't look like something you want to make a mistake with.
No, you would, if anything, get the heavy grit flap disc sander, and you can carve a lot with that. And I did for probably almost 10 years before I put the chainsaw wheel on there. And you really got to know the way wood grain is and where it's going to bite. Because I've had friends who have done it and cut the end of their thumb, and it's bad news. It's scary.
Yeah, you mentioned driftwood. Is all your stuff kind of done on driftwood, or do you how do you source your wood for your stuff?
In the beginning, it was all driftwood. I was obsessed with it. I would, obviously when I was younger, I had more time. I'd go to the beach, a few times a week. I'd go surf, and then I'd fill up the trunk of my car with it, bring it home. But then, as time goes on, not as much time to have. So I had to find wood that worked. So most of it, honestly, is just from Lowe's, either lumber department or, that's pretty much it.
Wow.
And then I weather it to kind of mimic or look like the old driftwood that I was using. So I'll even pick pieces that are cracked and broken at the lumber yard, and people at Home Depot over here sometimes they're like, "Are you sure you want this piece?" I'm like, "Yeah, I want all the cracks."
Yeah. I mean, they're probably happy to sell it too.
Yeah.
It doesn't get tossed somewhere.
Exactly. And then the weird curved pieces nobody wants, I'm like, I'll take it. I hate seeing an orphan piece of wood.
Yeah.
It's that wood at night just looks at all the other ones is like, man, you guys are going to go home tomorrow, and tomorrow I'll still be here.
The land of misfit wood.
Yeah, all the weird bent pieces. That's why when people order molding from me, they put it up and they're like, wait a minute, it's not supposed to be wavy on the wall.
Do you make tiki molding?
I do, yeah, but
that's rad.
I'll use straight wood for that.
I don't think I've seen any of those pieces. That's amazing.
This isn't stained yet. It's not stained yet, but it's
I can see it. Bright. That's so cool.
So it's just this I carve on a router. Oh, you can't even see it from here.
No, you can. I can see it. Yeah, it looks really cool. Yeah, that's amazing.
So yeah, it's actually the designs are all very similar to the shirt here.
Sure.
This is one of my shirts.
Oh, that's one of your designs too?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's all 60s based on traditional Tapa, but very kind of cartoonized versions of it.
Sure. I think I mentioned on my show before that my grandmother, my mom's mom, in the 1950s, when she got remarried, she married a full-blooded Hawaiian. So all of my aunts and uncles are half Hawaiian,
Oh
And so all my
wow.
cousins who are closest in age to me are also Hawaiian, and they all live on Kauai and actually moved over there and lived on Kauai for, I don't know, 6 months or so when I was in my early 20s. Uh,
Wow.
so yeah, I have a little bit of Polynesian culture in my family. Um,
That's super cool.
so yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's one of the reasons why I definitely like tiki stuff. Is it's something that I grew. My grandmother was very. She learned to hula. She was very into Hawaiian culture, so her whole house was all full of that stuff too. So
That's super cool. Yeah, right. Well, so when I was 16, I learned to surf, and then when I went away to school and college when I was about 19, um, that's when I started like really diving into the history of surfing, and that's when I found Hawaii and the tikis and everything, and I was just obsessed with Polynesian culture and reading every book I could on it, and sadly there wasn't a ton of stuff, and there was like folklore stories, and then there was like some archaeological history stuff, but it wasn't, there was like no, not merging kind of the people and the things, but yeah, I love it, and I read everything I could, and it's fascinating, like and I don't even know why I'm so fascinated by it, but um, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's like the tropics fantasy of it all, or if it's like I really have no idea. Something struck with me.
well, I think one of the things for mainlanders or general mainland United States in the 30s, tiki culture started kind of becoming a thing. And then during World War II, so many Americans were stationed in Hawaii for certain amounts of time that when they came back to the States in the 40s and 50s, they brought a lot of that back with them. And that's where, you got all the tiki themed restaurants in California
Yep.
and all over and stuff. And so it's not that surprising that it became disconnected from the actual Polynesian people, is that it just kind of became a kitsch in the United States,
Totally.
And so I that's probably why forever there was no connection between the two things. And so the fact that you went looking for that, I think, is respectful and really cool.
Yeah, in the beginning, I don't think I did when I was like 17 and carved my first
Yeah.
tiki. I was just like, I'm just making neat tikis for the backyard. And my uncle, who he was a artist his whole life, he did pop-up books, illustration and engineering, and he was always about, you research stuff. And he told me, he's like, if you're going to carve these tikis, you really got to know what they're about and where they come from. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. And that's when I like really dove into it, and I was even more hooked. And but it also made me like never I always wanted to, or I never wanted to recreate something that was kind of cultural and very significant. I was like doing characters based on it, and still though, like I'm still an outsider, inspired by it, and that's touchy grounds for sure. And I always just make sure to like always be respectful and never
Sure.
recreate something that is sacred.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think your stuff, I think it fits the bill for that for sure. All of it is really fun. Like, your swizzle sticks and stuff. They're all like, there's no way you go to a party where that stuff's there and it doesn't make the party that much more fun than if it wasn't there. You know what I mean? Dude, your shop, like I need to talk about your shop at least a little bit because it's just amazingly cool. And then we'll segue directly from that into Disneyland. So I want to ask you about something.
Okay.
I was looking at the pictures of your shop and it's like so like authentically seasoned. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't look like it's like a set that somebody built. It looks like it exists in that way, which is amazing. I love it. It reminds me of Disneyland. Like you get to work in Disneyland every day.
I mean, like the Indiana Jones line and the Jungle Cruise and the Tiki
Mhm.
Room, those were all huge inspirations. And I knew I loved them, but like once, let's see, we moved into here about 11 years ago. I built this shack probably within the first 3 months of living here. And I would just kind of like place things. I didn't really have a plan. It was just like built, and then I worked in here too, carving. So it's just like time and layers. And then obviously I'm carving in here, so everything gets covered in dust. And people always like to joke. They're like, "Do you ever dust in there?" I'm like, "Every day I put more dust in, of course." So and everyone, well, I haven't even done it yet, but I'm like, for an art show one of these days, I want to carve something, like literally cover it in dust and then put clear coat over so the dust is stuck on there. And I can just imagine someone in the shop, like, or in the gallery, like trying to brush the dust off. So yeah, it's very dusty, as you can see it, but I love it. It's like everything I love I put around me, and then like stuff will be straight and I'll be like, I need it a little bit crooked, and then there we go.
I love how the vines are all like taking over in the ceiling joists and stuff. That's super cool.
That was like, it's just not planned. There's behind us, there's a vine that grows on the fence, and it just started growing. And I used to every summer so get up there and chop it, but I mean, since we had kids 4 years ago, like time went away.
Yeah, that will happen. I had all my kids when I was very young, so all my kids are adults, and I'm about to start getting into grandpa land before too long.
My God, you're too young to be a grandpa.
Yeah, that's what I say. For sure. My middle son got married at the end of 2019, and his wife, my daughter-in-law, is like, yeah, it's getting to be about that time. And so he's like, it's funny because he's a lot like me, and he has like a lowrider truck, and he's like super into that kind of stuff. And so he had like a momentary crisis in the last couple like month or so, where he's like, well, there's things I got to get done before I have kids. And so he went and bought a 1962 Buick Electra.
Whoa.
That he's going to turn into a lowrider. And I swear to God, I've owned classic cars all of my life.
Same here.
And this car is one of the nicest 60s like garaged cars I've ever seen.
Wow.
I was like, oh wow, that's awesome. They totally redid the interior. And he's like, no, this is the original interior, and it looks brand new. The only thing wrong with it is it's got the cracked dash that every 60s car had, no matter what. And other than that, I mean, it looks showroom. It's even the headliner is original and is in perfect condition. I was like, wow. He pulled it up, and I was like, you got to be kidding me, dude. This thing is amazing.
Was it a California car?
I think it was. He bought it from somebody out like in Hemet, like way out in the middle of nowhere. And I think it was just like in a garage like forever. And I think the guy he bought it from the original owner.
Wow. Oh, that's super cool.
It's a beautiful car. I'm like super jealous.
That's super cool. I was lucky, like when growing up, my parents in the 80s, they bought a 1964 Chevelle Malibu convertible.
Oh, the red one I saw in your pictures. That's a beautiful car.
Oh, thanks. It sat for, I don't know, 10 years in our garage, maybe more. Yeah. Oh, about 10 years, I guess. And then when I was 15, like I had been saving up. I wanted like a early 70s Nova with like, this would have been what, mid 90s. I wanted like big fat wheels and little wheels in the front.
A muscle car.
Muscle car, yeah. But then my dad was like, hey, what if we painted the Malibu? Because it was always primer gray with like a yellow fender up here. And to me, it was like the old gross car that was in the garage. But then I started like re-looking at it. I'm like, wait a minute, that's like a cool car. But because I had grown up with it always there, and it was always like, covered in like mismatched seats and everything. And then we started looking at what it could be. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like right here. So they gave me the option to take my dad's 56 Chevy station wagon or the 64 Malibu. And I was
that would be a tough call.
that's a tough one. And to a 15-year-old, I'm like, I drove the station wagon once, and it felt so long, and like I'm like I wouldn't even know how to back up, and it was just a big crazy car. So I took the 64 Malibu, which I still have, and I love it, and it's but my parents, they bought it for $800 in Malibu in the 80s.
Of course.
So I'm lucky to still have it. And it's funny, right before my first kid, I was like, okay, I got to finally redo the interior on it, because I'm like, got the kid, I'm not going to be able to spend any money. So
yeah, it's my son's philosophy was like, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to get to do it. So I better get it done.
Exactly. So that's when I bought the kit to redo the interior, and I started to do it myself. And I'm like, this is not easy. Like,
no.
I can do rustic stuff, but like precision work, I suck at. So
the little ring locally. Things that you have to clamp underneath on the framing, that's so hard. It's such a workout.
It is. And I took the old seats out and I started to do it. And then there was like metal that was broken. I'm like, I don't know how to weld. Like, so then I found a guy, and it was awesome. It was like, he did it in a week and for way less than I thought it was going to be. And then I come to like pristine new interior, and I had been driving that car for 20 years with the original seats, and then I had fur covers over them.
Sure.
So that was a miracle. That was neat.
That's amazing. Are you originally from Ventura County, or is that just where you settled? So you were
born here, and my wife and I moved up to San Luis Obispo for 3 years to go to school. And that was it. And came back. So yeah, so you said you went to car shows in Northern California.
Yeah, I'm from the Bay Area originally. I've been in LA since 95. Came down here I was in the video game industry for like 15 years doing like animation direction, stuff like that. When I went to school for animation. And so
cool.
When I came down here in 95, it was still it hadn't all gone to 3D animation yet. It was still like, pixel art, and having the skills to be able to draw and do traditional style frame animation it was a marketable skill. And so I came down here, and then like I fought with myself for years about, am I going to stay in games, or am I going to go into the animation industry? And I probably should have went into animation. I found out pretty quickly that I didn't love the video game industry, because I'm not much of a gamer, and I don't fit in really well with that culture so much. And so I was always kind of an outsider in that industry, like there wasn't a lot of like punk rock and death metal skateboarding type of dudes in my offices. But one of the things that I did manage to almost accomplish was, at one point, one of the companies I was at was like, they were looking for projects from all the internal employees, like pitch ideas. And I came up with like a Ratfink car racing game, like it was like a Mario Kart, but with Ratfink characters, with all Ed Roth universe. And so I like put together this big design document, and it was like sitting on my desk, and some publishers were coming through to check out the offices and see if they wanted to publish games for us or whatever. And one of the guys saw it, and he was like, "What's that?" And my boss was like, "Hey, Mike, what is that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's like based on, Ed Roth stuff." And the guy's like, "Oh man, I grew up on that. This is the coolest thing. Can I have this?" And then, man, we put that thing into production, and it was like, we had like a full working demo level all done. This was for the Sega Dreamcast. So it was kind of between the PlayStation and PlayStation 2, but it was the Dreamcast. And it was like, fully animated Ratfink universe with like a kart game. And, and I got to work with Ed Roth on it. And at the time, he was in the middle of, back in the heyday, he didn't understand copyright stuff very well. So he didn't keep control of any of the copyright stuff or enforce any copyright stuff for a long time. And so this was in like 97. And so he was like in the middle of kind of like he only had Ratfink. That was the only thing he could claim and get the rights, like Mother's Worry and, Brother Ratfink, all those other characters. He was still trying to figure out how to get the rights to them back for himself. And so the only character we could use that was an actual Roth character was Ratfink. And so I got to create like 10 new Roth characters, which the game got canceled. So it never came out.
Bummer.
Yeah, it was like probably the worst thing that has ever happened to me as a professional. Like I was devastated. And that really, really ruined how I felt about the video game industry for sure. Yeah. But the company, when the game got canceled, the rights to the game got transferred back to the company I worked for. And then I left the company and went on to go to work at other places. And then when they went out of business, I'm still friends with all of the founders of that company. And they were like, hey, man, like we can have all this back. Like you can have all these characters back. You can have the game design, but you can have all of it back. And you can like own it outright. So I now own the copyright to like these 10
that's awesome.
characters that are not official Ratfink Roth characters, but were totally approved by and would have been. And then I had another publisher that like right before the pandemic, talking to me about whether or not I was interested in seeing it get built. And so it may happen again at some point.
That's super cool. I want to play this. I don't play video games, but I want to play that one.
Dude, I mean, if you ever played Mario Kart, it was pretty much Mario Kart, which is super fun. Only it looked way cooler because it had Ed Roth, it's all Ratfink stuff.
That would be so fun. I mean, as a kid, I loved Rad Racer, and that was pretty basic.
Yeah. That whatever.
That's super cool. So you got to actually work with him. When did he pass?
2000-ish, I think. Okay. So he was,
Didn't he end up? Wasn't he in Ventura County? Oh no, he was in Utah or something.
Yeah, right? he became a seventh or a Mormon. He Latter-day Saints, and he met his wife Eileen, and she was Mormon, and so he converted, and they moved out to Manti, Utah, which is where the family still is now.
Okay.
And his wife is like the nicest lady ever.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, Ed was, he was a crazy dude. He was a crazy dude. And I happened to kind of come across him at a point in his life when, he was like in his 60s, I think. And like I said, he was like in the middle of a million lawyers and trying to get back the things that he created. And he was so on guard about getting screwed over on things that there was a little bit of a barrier to get through where he's like, you guys are just trying to get this from me. Like everybody's gotten everything from me. And, and so, but once we were able to get past that barrier and show him something that was, like a functioning version of the game, he was like, oh my God, this is really cool. Because he was an older generation. And I think in his mind, when he thought video games, he was thinking pixel graphics. He didn't understand 3D graphics. And so when he saw the Ratfink universe and those characters alive in 3D in an environment, he was just like, oh my God. Like it was like pulled it out of his own mind and stuck it onto a TV screen. And in a way that, because another one of the things is he was always annoyed by the way third-party people made his things. Like there were a bunch of toys made in the 80s that were like, he's like, they look right, but they don't have they're not coming from the right place. Like this character would never have bright red lips. Like that's dorky and, like just weird stuff like that. So when we got it right, me being a person who had been looking at Roth stuff literally all of my life, Like I know where it was coming from. And so I could put it together that way. And it was really cool. It was really cool to know that I did something for somebody who meant so much to me that they approved of. I mean, you know, sometimes you get those moments and you're like, damn.
That is super cool, man. That's super neat. When I was going through college and like, I'd have to kind of like define and tell professors and things like where Tiki comes from. Ed Roth was a big one. And I remember researching, and that's amazing to be connected to that and to work with him. That is super cool. I mean, he's, you know, like within this world we're in, you know, art world, lowbrow, custom culture stuff.
Top guy.
He's, you know, one of the gods, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, and thanks to him, we got Robert Williams to boot.
Wait, thanks to him, what?
We got Robert Williams as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was his first job. His first professional art job was with Ross Studios. So.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Like all the old ads you see, the hand-drawn black and white ads of the T-shirts stuff that ran in car ads, those were all hand done by Robert Williams.
Oh, how cool. That's super cool. I got to meet him once at my Tiki art show he came to, and I was amazed he was there. It was pretty incredible.
He's such a nice dude. Like, he's the most unassuming, I'm just like you kind of dude you could ever run across for somebody who's as accomplished as he is. Yeah. I met him at a couple card shows over the years and at like some stuff at Lou's, and he's just a dude. He's, you know.
Yeah. I was amazed by that. I honestly, I kind of hung back and I was just kind of listening to him talk to other people mostly. And then I finally was like, God dang it, this could be my only opportunity. I got to meet him. So met him and got the photo with him.
Yeah, you can do that nowadays. The time when I met him, there was no iPhones yet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I always think about that. I'm like, was that before iPhone? Did I get a photo of that? And I'll look through my history. It's pretty crazy. Like, I have 10 years worth of photos on our iCloud now. It's nuts.
I have a couple pictures with Ed that are like, you know, they're actual photographs from a film camera. Cool. I have like this folder of stuff that was like my inspiration folder when I was working on the project. Like, you know, we'd go out to the Moon Eyes, Ratfink reunions and stuff, and like just go through rolls of film. So I have this binder full of like everything I could get my hands on that was official Roth stuff, or like photographs of cars from car shows and stuff like that. And then like inside of there, I just have pictures of like me with all those dudes, you know, like photographs of like, you know, cool. Jimmy Cleveland and all those guys. And yeah, pretty cool. It was a pretty cool time. And, you know, I need to sit down and finish my game design doc so that I can send it to that company and see if they're still interested.
That would be incredible. I want to play that game.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
You know, too, like I was thinking about it, like I remember seeing photos of him when he was customizing his cars. And I remember reading like he literally would get plaster and start sculpting and then put fiberglass over it. And I was just like, I loved how he kind of just like did stuff, you know, and like, ever since then, let's see, I guess like 2000s or so when I started researching that, I was like, I always wanted like an art car or a car where I like customized it and like sculpted on it. And did you see photos of the Land Rover I have?
No.
It looks like an old safari car.
That's awesome. Oh, I did see pictures of that. That's awesome. It's totally like the Indiana Jones ride car.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
But I mean, like, eventually someday I would love to literally sculpt or create some sort of like vehicle the way he did. I don't think nice and smooth and amazing like his, but some sort of like
they got pretty good at it. They got pretty good at it at Ross Studios, that's for sure.
Oh my God, yeah. No, I want something.
You hear the stories about how like once he figured out how durable fiberglass was, he would do that, and then he would just pound the panels with sledgehammers to break all the plaster inside apart, because it would be solid plaster, and he would just bang the shit out of those things and then dump all of the pieces of plaster out. So when they were all getting restored in like the 90s and 2000s, the people who were restoring them would still like find chunks of plaster inside of the fiberglass parts when you'd have to shake out these big chunks of plaster.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, crazy dude. He was a crazy dude.
That's incredible.
Speaking of Indiana Jones Disneyland stuff, you guys are Disneyland regulars, I gather.
Pre-pandemic, we were.
Yeah,
we would go,
here.
but like I guess once every 2 or 3 weeks. Just on a weekday, just regular. Go for, especially with the kids. It was like fun to just walk around, and we'd be there all day, but we'd only go on like maybe 3 rides.
Right. When you have little kids like that, it's a little harder to get on rides and stuff. But
yeah,
me and my wife are, we're annual pass holders, and some years we'd go like once a month, and some years we'd only manage to get to go like 4 times in a year, because my wife, with film production and stuff, if she's on a film, she's on it for a while. And then if she like strings like 3 or so together, like she's working for a whole year, like every single day. So we don't really get as much time, but yeah, we're Disneyland people. And it's funny because, I have a lot of friends who are just like, you seem like the least Disneyland type person ever. Like,
dude, I'm surprised you said you were. I was thinking that because you said you don't like to leave your studio. But
yeah. Well, the thing that's also is I really hate crowds.
Same here. I had a full like panic attack. I guess when my daughter was like 1, it was on the submarine ride, so it was like a claustrophobic thing. But now after that, since then, when there's like crazy crowds, I've gotten that same feeling. So that was no fun.
The easy explanation for me is it's twofold. Number one is I was an animator, and that when I was a little kid, that's what I wanted to do. And so, it's kind of a place that is a shrine to animation, but even more so than that, it's a shrine to art. Every single aspect of that place is based on art. You know what I mean? Yep. And so for me as a creative person who, you know how it is, and people who aren't professional creators can't possibly understand what it's like to have to pull stuff from out of your imagination into the real world all day, every single day. And it is a very underrated and underestimated part of what our job is. And it's exhausting. And you have to constantly find places to get your inspiration from. So when I see somebody like you who has your studio, you almost have to have that. And it's like the same thing with my studio. It's like my walls are skateboards and posters of, punk rock bands and heavy metal bands. And I got my toys in back behind me. And it's like I constantly have to fill the well all the time. And
totally,
Disneyland is like one of those places where it sounds weird. I mean, you probably get it because you are also a regular, but like when I know I'm going, like I start getting excited about it days in advance. And it's like totally. The day before, I'm like 12 years old. I'm like, yes, get to go to Disneyland tomorrow. And it's like I get to just stock up on all of that stuff, whatever it is that I need to get, like I can go through the Pirates of the Caribbean ride and like come out and be like, I've got 50 new ideas.
Yeah, dude, totally. It's such a well of inspiration. It's insane. And like, that was a good point. I've always thought of it as very, art based, creative based, but that's a good point. That whole place started with an idea and a sketch, and then it had to go through so many layers to how do we sculpt the concrete that way, and how do we make concrete look like, cartoons, and it's incredible, and it all comes together in this magical place. And you're in Fantasyland, you turn a corner, you're in Tomorrowland. It is incredible. It's like once we started going with the annual passes, I was thinking like, because people would complain about the price of annual pass, and I'm like this place should be $1,000 a day to get in. It's incredible. Like you don't realize all that went into this. And every time we went in, I just felt like honored to be there. So it's incredible.
Did you see that they're expanding again? Did you see all that?
I did. Yeah, I saw that. And
Crazy.
I wasn't quite sure. It sounds like it's like off site or something, or is it?
It's the footprint is basically the old Disneyland hotel. They're just taking that whole footprint, that whole area that was the hotel and any land they own. So that's going to be like, as I understand it, is going to be a third park. It won't even be It'll be like the difference between California Adventure and the Disneyland.
So they'll take out the hotel, or?
Yeah, that's all coming down. The old hotel.
I did not realize that. Wow.
Yeah. Which I don't know what that means for Trader Sam's.
That's what I was just thinking. I'm like, Trader Sam's, like, I got my one claim to fame is that I have a Trader Sam or one of my paintings up in there. Like,
oh wow, that's amazing.
Don't take it down.
If they'll move it before they, if it has to come down, they'll just move it.
I might have a print of it in here somewhere. Maybe not. I don't. Thought I had it.
I'm sure that's Googleable.
That was a cool story. Like, actually, with Tom Laura, one of your previous podcast guests, him and his buddy were doing an art show in Anaheim, and they invited a bunch of us tiki artists to do it. It was like a headhunter themed art show, and so I did 2 kind of explorer characters, and they're tied up by a guy with like a tiki mask and a skirt, and he's kind of like leading them off. And I had that in the art show, and that wasn't even planned to be in the art show. I grabbed it last minute just before leaving the house. I'm like, maybe I could throw this in the art show too. So that one went up, and then an Imagineer who was building Trader Sam's at the time, he went to the art show, and that was the only painting he bought, and he bought it for Trader Sam's.
Oh wow!
I found out afterwards, a mutual friend, Kevin and Jody, they do artwork for Disney. He told me, he's like, hey, I think he bought that for the new bar they're working on at Disneyland. I was like, oh my God. Like, as a Disney fan, I was, pumped by that.
That's huge. That's huge.
That was super cool. And then to finally and I'm trying to think when it opened, I don't remember much social media stuff. So I didn't see the painting up in there until we actually went to Trader Sam's, and I'm like, looking around, I'm like, did it make it? Did it make the cut? And then I saw it up on the shelf, and I was like, oh! So that was pretty cool.
That's a totally cool. Yeah, that's a nice, as artists, we get these little, every now and then we get these little come ups, for ourselves, like I got to do the micro machines, and, it's like you get those moments where you're like, yes, this is why I do this. This is why I do this stuff, and it's like, we're all DIY people, we like I was saying before, like there's, it's hard to explain. I would hate to call it a labor of love, because that sounds somehow negative. It has like a negative connotation, but it really is kind of a labor of love, what we do, and it's to get those. One of the things that forever, it took me a long time as an artist to really grasp and be able to put into some kind of context is that constant next level. I'm always trying to get to the next level, where these people who I admire are, like, I'm constantly trying to do that. And at some point, because it's like a mirage, right? It's like, it's always just in front of you. And I think a lot of times we don't stop and look backwards and be like, oh my God, like I've been there for a long time and I didn't even realize it. You know what I mean? But then you get those moments where like your painting ends up in Trader Sam's and you're like, yeah, that's where I wanted it to be.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's hard, that's neat. Man. I think I probably reflected more on it when I wasn't able to do it full time, when I was doing like the nights and weekends things.
Sure.
And I'm like scrubbing algae out of a pool, and I'm like, why can't I do artwork full time? But now every day I do kind of have to kick myself. I'm like, I mean, I feel lucky, but then also, like you said, like looking, when you look ahead, you're like, and or more like when you're looking back, like that's when you kind of realize like, okay, I did accomplish some neat things, like, but when you're into it, you don't necessarily see it. So
yeah, that famous you can't see the forest for the trees. Sometimes you really can't see the forest for the trees when just in life, but when you're a creator, it's so all encompassing that sometimes it's a little bit harder, I think.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Like regarding Disneyland, and this is a thing that even being aware of your art and being a fan of your art, when I started looking a little bit closer at your Instagram, I noticed the Adventureland Day thing.
Oh yeah.
Can you explain that to me so that I understand it, and that so the people who are listening can kind of understand it? It seems really cool.
So when I was cleaning pools, and this was even before I had kids, but like we didn't have an annual pass back then, and there was a day that someone created called Adventurers Day, and it was a bunch of people, they all got together and they wore like safari outfits, and I was like, that looks so cool. And then they stopped doing it like probably 2 years before I started going full-time artist. And so when I'm like full-time artist, I'm like, yeah, I have a little bit more free time to pick whatever projects that I want. And I'm like, I wanted to do Adventurers Day, and it wasn't around. So I contacted the people who used to run it, and they were like, they moved and they weren't into doing it. So I'm like, do you mind if I take it over or do whatever? And they're like, that's fine. That'd be awesome. So I just changed it to Adventureland Day. It was hard for me to say Adventurers Day. So that's when I went with Adventureland Day. But it started off just like, I was like, how many people could I get there dressed in theme? I love dressing up in Safari and Indiana Jones. And the very first one, I think we had like 300 people show up, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy.
Wow.
And then the next year it was like 600 people showed up. I'm like, whoa, this is awesome. And then last year it was over 1,000 people. Well, right before the pandemic, actually, it was March 4th or whatever, we had our last one, and there were over 1,000 people there showed up dressed in safari or tiki theme or whatever. It was rad.
Insane.
It was super cool. I organized a treasure hunt where you kind of had to like decode things, and we texted out a decoder, and you had to like run around the park, and I don't even remember how I did it. It was like you had to look at signs and decipher stuff. And then it basically gave you a treasure point where we went, and Tikiland Trading and we designed a pin, and we had 1,000 pins made. And then people came, and you would get your like treasure pin at the end of it.
That's so cool.
It was super cool. It was rad. And like the last one, the treasure point was like tucked away in Toontown, which I know no one would go to Toontown. So I'm like, that's the best spot.
Yeah, you go in there, you go on Roger Rabbit, and you get out of there.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it when I was like, there was so many like faded painted things in Toontown. I'm like, God, even the paint crew doesn't go in here. Anyway, it was a lot of fun, and
that's super cool that people were able to get a thing for doing that. This wasn't connected to Disneyland at all. Like it wasn't an official thing.
No, it's an unofficial dress up day, and we had people who helped me who work for Disney, so they kind of like talked with and told security, and they were all fine with it. And there's just certain dress up things you're not supposed to like look like a character in the park, sure. But so many of them, there were ones who looked like Indiana Jones, and like there was a photo I took of Indiana Jones and then Indy's father from I forget which one that
Last
was.
Crusade or Next Crusade or whatever.
Yeah. So tons of people all day long were like, this is the funnest day I've ever had here. Like, I feel like I'm a part of the whole magic of Disney. And other people who had no idea what was going on, they're like, we heard from other people, like they would come up to them like, why are you dressed up? This looks so fun. You guys have treasure maps and you're like writing stuff out. So that was super fun.
That's crazy cool, man. I'm guessing that you're hoping after everything opens back up, you'll be able to keep doing it.
Definitely. Yeah. We had to skip this year's, and we were lucky enough to get the last one in, like, beginning of March, because then 2 weeks later, Disneyland was closed.
Yeah. I went in February with my kids, like, and then like, was like right at the end of February. And I remember at the time we were like joking around about coronavirus. We were like, oh man, if somebody here had it, it would be super bad. And then like anytime somebody coughed or sneezed, we're like, coronavirus. And then like 2 weeks later, the whole world locked down. We were like, oh shit, it wasn't funny at all.
I know. Yeah.
So crazy.
I remember thinking that. And then thinking back to the beginning of the pandemic till now, and like the knowledge we have.
It's crazy.
I found stuff in the garage that I bought for my daughters for last Easter, and it was tucked away for a full year. And I can't remember why we didn't give it to them, but it was weird just opening something that I knew I set back there. And I remember when I went to the grocery store to get it, and it was like I'm like, are we gonna have food next week? I'm like, am I gonna have a job? Like, and it's so cool to think about all the things that happened this year. And like, we got a vaccine. I'm actually going tomorrow to get my vaccine.
Yeah, I get mine on Monday. I'm excited.
Oh, cool. Yeah, same here, man.
My wife got hers on Saturday, so.
Oh, awesome.
She's on a TV show right now. She's the department head on the Netflix TV show Atypical.
Oh, and awesome.
So they're filming that right now, and so she's like the constant grind of worrying about, constantly testing, constantly am I going to get sick or whatever, and like just to have of course, she got her vaccine right in the last couple weeks of production, so, but it's, at least still,
Yeah, I think it's going to be a huge relief for everyone, and
we can all get back to doing stuff.
Get it. And hopefully enough people get it so that we don't have like some crazy strain that like doesn't work with the vaccine.
Yeah. Well, that's a different bridge to cross, I guess. But
yeah, exactly.
We're like, anyway, we have like 3 bags of stuff that like have to go to the food pantry that we bought a year ago that, like in that same thing, I'm like, what are things that could last forever just in case? And so like, bought a bunch of rice, and it's like, we don't eat that much rice. Bought a bunch of pasta. So pay it forward to the food bank out here in the valley, put it in some people's bellies. That would be bellies.
Super cool. That'd be rad. My dad used to go and he would cook at those and serve people. And that's something I want to do with my girls, when they're just a little bit older. Do that community stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's what being a human being is supposed to be about, service to your broader community and other people. And gets easy for us, when we're stuck in our art studios all the time, and not necessarily frequently people who do what we do are also introverts, and so it's like a lot of times it's a struggle for us to like be around other people in general. And so there's a lot of lessons there, I think, to like your kids and stuff,
Yep, exactly. That being said, it will be nice to actually go out and see people.
Right. Have you been surfing at all during any of this?
No, we took this pandemic super seriously. So like half a year before this whole happened, my daughter, she was a few months old. She got like a normal respiratory virus and she ended up in the hospital for a week. So that scared us to like, if that was a normal respiratory virus that everyone kind of gets, we're not. So we literally like, we haven't really left the house. I haven't been in another building since last April. Other than my house. So
right. I mean,
we're one of the crazy ones.
Store. I kept going to the grocery store because we could never, like the delivery service was always booked. Like there was never any free spots to get stuff to deliver. And so I was like, but my wife wouldn't go. I'd go by myself. I'd just like Rambo mission the whole thing, just like totally like just like get in there and get it hammered out. But yeah, other than the grocery store, I haven't been anywhere either, which is, obviously in the last few months, I've been able to go more places. Like I go to Home Depot if I need something or, something like that. But, I'm not like
and as we got more knowledge.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, as we got more knowledge of stuff, we realized like, as long as you're wearing a mask, you're like mostly covered. You're good. But I think we just got in the routine of not really going anywhere.
Sure. I mean, better to be safe than sorry anyway, better to be safe than sorry.
Once or twice a week, I take the kids and we go on hikes and things, but I always go on weekdays where there's no one out. So that's been pretty cool. Like I do love that for sure. And that will probably continue. Like, I mean, being out in nature and like finding cool little streams. And it's funny, like a lot of the little streams and stuff I find, I'll take these photos and send them to friends or I'll put them on social media and people are like, where is that? I'm like, well, that's like a water treatment runoff. And just right there, it looks magical. And like, there's foliage everywhere. But I'm like, it's literally like water treatment.
That's hilarious. Do you think you're going to get back to surfing after or?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Oh, so that's what I was going to get to. So because we were so worried about the kids' grandparents, my mom and my wife's parents, they used to help and watch the kids here and there. And that's kind of when I would go surfing. But that's now, I watch the kids and so my wife can have a break. So my mom is clear tomorrow. And then my in-laws, they were clear last weekend. So we're like we're coming up on, I finally get to go out for a surf. And
nice.
Like I would surf 3 times a week, 10 years ago. And like, so it's been quite the change from going so often to nothing. I mean, it's been a 15-pound change.
Yeah, dude.
It's not going to fit.
I spent 2019, cause I was still, playing ice hockey, couple different teams twice a week. And
oh, that's cool.
I kind of realized I'm like in 2019, I turned 50 and I was like, well, if you're going to keep doing this and be competitive, you better get your shit together. And so I lost 15 pounds and I was in killer shape. And then literally in March, my season was about to start and all this happened. And, and now I've got 10 of those 15 pounds back that need to go.
Yep. Yeah. This and I've been always so active my whole life, mainly because I can't sit still. I'm like, I have to go out and do stuff. But
sure.
Yeah, the most I've done is hikes with my 2 and 4-year-old, and they're not exactly climbing mountains.
Sure, for sure.
I mean, although I end up holding them a lot of the time, so that's some weight training.
Right. It's like the rucksack training. Carry 50 pounds up and down a hill for a while.
But the other downside is we got into another routine of we'll go and we'll get Jack in the Box cheeseburger. So I'm like, that's not helping me at all either.
Yeah. That was the thing that was the exact opposite for me. I was easily able to cut out all fast food because I was I'm not going to go get food anywhere. And so I've had fast food twice in the last year, which has been awesome, but it hasn't helped my waistline.
What was crazy is before this, I hadn't had fast food in 10 years. So now I'm okay, because now I'm the drive-through is the only thing I'm going to do, and the only drive-through is Jack in the Box. So I'm I did the opposite.
It is weird how everybody did what they had to do to get through the last year. Totally crazy. Because my wife worked on a film over the summer that was the first movie production during the pandemic. And so literally the whole Hollywood industry was watching the first 4 weeks of production to see if it was going to be something that was possible to do. And then once they got through 4 weeks without anybody getting sick, floodgates opened. But I noticed a lot of shows changed. Like new shows seem to have way less background characters, and they're more intimately put together. I wonder if that's going to, and way more like just straight digital sets, you know, like they have these studios now where like the whole, like the Mandalorian is like, that's done on a digital set, almost all of it. And so like, you know, any of the scenes where you see those, you know, the characters like in a huge giant background, that's like a gigantic LCD screen, you know, that's like curved. And so it's crazy. The digital set thing is totally crazy. And I noticed a lot more than that. Sorry.
They actually have like a digital screen behind the actors. It's not like a green screen thing.
Oh, it's even more crazy than that. There in the video game industry, there are these like kind of like turnkey engine systems where you can just like, you just buy, there's this one called Unity that I worked on the last game I worked on. And it's basically like, you can build the environments. It's all, you buy a package of software, and then it's like, you can easily like build a landscape and throw your rocks and mountains and trees and all this stuff. And you can build all of it. Instead of having to code all of it, you can just kind of organically build it. They're using Unity to make movies and TV and stuff. And so like you'll see a commercial that looks like somebody's standing in a forest with their foot on a rock. And that's not, that person's just standing on a green screen and they've been dropped into a digital set. And so
crazy.
They're like, oh, we need a car here. And so like you just get like whatever, like a Jeep or something, and like plop it into the scene, and like it's all done digital. It's insane. It's crazy.
That is crazy. Wow.
And so the Mandalorian's done a lot like that.
Okay. All right. Wow. That's amazing. I didn't know
you
that.
Got your little Mandalorian, the child mug you got back there. I love that, dude.
My KK Bob. Thank you. Yeah, that was fun. Oh, and I have my swizzle that it came with broke. It's a little frog. My daughters are first on my stuff. So it's a little blocking it, but it's a little frog on top.
That's
and then
hilarious.
The little KK Bob character on the bottom.
Dude, that stuff is all so good. I love it.
Thank you.
When my wife sees that thing, we're gonna have one.
Well, I was gonna say I'll send you one. I have
very nice.
I have a few of the ones that didn't pass inspection, but you would never know it. They look perfect.
Artist proofs.
Yeah, exactly.
The artist proofs are always super rare later. Those are the collectible pieces.
Well, there you go. I'll write on the bottom 1 of 1 artist proof.
There you go. AP. Well, I was in the rock poster business. And so, doing print editions, like APs, I always held back APs, and like, even on some pieces a couple years later, it'd be like collectors would be like, "Do you got any APs of the, Iron Maiden?" And I'll be like, "Sure." And they'll pay like way more for the APs because, it's a smaller edition of the edition,
That's super cool. That's super neat.
We didn't, like a jackass, we didn't really get too much of your plugs in. Where can people find your work, and where can people find your store?
It's just tikitony.com, tikilandtrading.com, and then both of those. Instagram is the same, at Tiki Tony, at Tikiland Trading. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's
I'll put that also as links in the description so that people will be able to easily get there from here. But yeah, I think I'll let you go get back to your lovely children and wife, and your whole house kind of seems like, and the grounds of your property all seem like they're pretty tikied out.
Yeah, the backyard. Luckily, my wife is into plants and palm trees and everything, so she did all that magic. I just dug the holes for stuff, and she would tell me where to put it. So that's been fun. And our yard and house is tiny, but in the photos, like I think it looks way bigger. So even when friends come over the first time, they're like, "This is way smaller. I was expecting like Disneyland."
Well, that's the
Like,
Disneyland
no.
trick too, right? Is Disneyland, it's like, you're like, oh my goodness, the Pirates of the Caribbean's like this massive thing. And it's like, no, it just winds around really tight. Like Space Mountain is like,
Yeah.
it's like that. It's like Disneyland is like the ultimate optical illusion for that stuff.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, we have just tiny trails that go through it all, and like certain areas that open up more, but it's all like, yeah,
It
basic
looks
little
really
path.
cool. When people can find that stuff on pictures of a lot of that stuff on your Instagram.
Yep.
Looks cool, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I love to share the backyard and stuff. It's funny, my wife used to show me photos of Pinterest and be like, "This is what I want the backyard to look like," where it's like a pathway. And then now I'll notice like photos of our backyard are on Pinterest. Like, we made it. Look, people are using our yard as inspiration now.
Yeah, like we were talking about before, you get those little validations as a creative,
Well, although I think anyone can put anything on Pinterest.
I know. You know what is totally weird, like a kind of similar type of thing, is that I have a new project coming online here for a car show in Austin, and
oh, cool.
And so when I was talking to the art director about it, they're hiring me to do a bunch of shirts. And I was like, okay, yeah, it's like, email me all of your inspiration files so that I have an idea what you're looking for. And he's like, oh, we just put everything up on Pinterest now. And I'll send you a link to a Pinterest and you can just go on there and see everything. I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. I was like, now maybe I need to start running my business that way, because it actually makes a good sense.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it
is really neat. I did get into it for a while, but since kids, I have not looked at Pinterest since.
I know. Once you have kids,
So
everything changes.
Yeah. What does can you make certain, like, what they sent you was private, or anyone can
I haven't
see their
gotten it yet, so
collection?
I'm not exactly sure how it works. They just told me that's how they were going to send it to me, and I was like, all right. Because I just always
That makes
put everything on my Google Drive and then share the link with whoever, I'm working with on stuff. But it sounds like you can do the same thing with Pinterest. And since it's all visual, I guess it probably makes some kind of sense.
That makes sense. And then they could have teams of people all pulling inspiration, and then you could either like delete stuff. Like, who put that in there? Who put the Datsun in there? We didn't want Datsuns.
No
Not at our car
boobs.
show.
No boobs, guys. Grow up.
There's always somebody in the group.
Once I've gone through the project, I'll report back to you how it works.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it. I'll follow along. I love car shows. Like we talked about, I grew up on it. I miss the smell of the car show, everyone rolling in with no catalytic converters, and you're like, oh God.
Dude,
the smell
totally.
of bad coffee and donuts.
Yeah, we're drag racing family, so I can't wait till we can go back to the drag races and that nitromethane exhaust. It does nothing smells like that.
Yeah, it's funny how those certain sense things like are part of our memories. Yeah,
man,
I love that stuff.
My dad started taking me in the 70s, and then I started taking my kids in the 2000s, and my daughter got bit by that bug so bad, and she's 27. She still goes to the drag races every single year, and her fiance
cool.
is he is also a car guy and a drag race guy, so it's like a perfect fit. So they're like, the Winter Nationals happen at like the week of her birthday every year. So I used to take her for her birthday. Now she goes with her fiance, and it's like, can't wait to be able to go back and love that stuff.
That's awesome. That's super neat.
All right, man, I'm going to let you go. And thanks for coming on. And I think people are going to dig the episode.
Cool. Thanks for having me. This was fun. I forgot we were doing a podcast. I thought we were just hanging out.
That's exactly how I want it to be. So success. Cool, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.